Okay. Hopefully my internet's going to hold out for me. I have been working here. I don't know if you guys could hear me before. I've been working in my office for like 2 hours this morning. And seriously, in the last like 5 minutes, my Wi-Fi has kind of gotten really hiccupy. So I am going to stop the video of me and hopefully that will help. And then I'll display my screen. Yes, Diane, that is Murphy's Law, right? Like, I even came here early to make sure our Wi-Fi was working. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen, which makes it really hard for me to monitor the chat. So if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to throw things in the chat, but also feel free to just unmute. I'm pretty casual, so definitely feel free to ask questions or anything like that. Okay, hopefully I can share my screen. Okay, I'm hoping that this is, you guys can hear me and see my screen. That's my biggest hope. I'm gonna shrink this guy. So I am going to be talking about one of my absolutely favorite topics these days, which is feedback. Just a little tiny bit of background on me. I'm ShaundelKrumheuer, and I am a tech integration specialist and a librarian at Senior High in Billings. I just finished my 20th year here. This is the school that I started in, and I've been fortunate enough to stay here. I love teaching here. I started as an English teacher for 10 years. Then I did tech integration for 5 full-time. And then for the last 5 years, I've done half-time tech integration and half-time librarian. And so I kind of get a little more interaction with kids this way on a regular basis. I was in the classroom as a tech integration specialist, but at least in the library, I kind of get to have my regulars and know some of the kids. So I really, really enjoy that. So just a tiny bit of background on why this has become, I guess, kind of like one of my pet topics is last fall, our school joined the Visible Learning team. So we've been working our way through visible learning and really working on improving the practice of what we're doing. And one of the things we've really been looking at is feedback. So in the last year, I've kind of just been doing a ton of research and interaction with it. So I feel like I have a whole bunch to cram into a teeny tiny hour. I've gone over this repeatedly, trying to kind of crunch it down. So my goal is by that I can give you like a 10 to 15 minute like crash course. And what I'm using for my presentation tool today is Wakelet. Wakelet is basically just a way to curate links from the internet. But then the thing that I love is you can add pictures, you can add text. So it's kind of like Symbaloo, if you use that. It's kind of like taking your bookmarks bar and publishing it. And I have put the link to my Wakelet in the presentation notes, but I'll also grab it here. This will just give you all of the links that you might need or might want to kind of what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can get to the chat. Oh, yes, Diane, I have been a Wakelet user for a while, and it's really this summer I've been teaching a course. Yay! Oh my gosh, I did not know that, Dan. Thank you. Oh yeah, I am I'm facilitating a course for teachers this summer, and we showed Wakelet to them as a way for them to kind of curate their resources and to curate resources for students. And then all of a sudden it's like, I have been using this tool-ish, but now everything I do, I'm like, well, let's do a Wakelet. Hey, I'm going to plan a presentation. Let's use Wakelet for my platform. So yay, I am super excited to introduce you to it if you're new, or if you're not new. I'm going to share the link, or I shared the link to my Wakelet there. There are things what I really need to do is make a note to add some notes. I've got a bunch of information from our visible learning, like the Corwin resources that we've been getting. So we have a couple of books that we've been using since our school is a part of this. We like joined the visible learning team. And then one of my colleagues did a presentation to the staff on feedback. She's working on her master's. So one of her tasks was to do something, and she did that. So I took some things from her. I also work really closely with one of our administrators for our PLC meetings each month. So I've taken some of the things that we've created for that. So I just want to make sure that I'm trying to give credit where credit is due. This is a bunch of ideas, kind of like I said, curated over the last year. So to get started, some importance or some background on why feedback is important. If you're familiar with John Hattie's work at all, he looks at the effect size of different things we do as professional teachers and how it impacts our students. And feedback has one of, or the highest impact on student learning. So what we're learning is that this is where we need to focus and concentrate some of our energy, is giving our students effective and timely feedback on what they're doing. But we're also going to kind of look at this in a broader scale. A lot of what I'm doing is focusing on teacher feedback to students, but we also have to realize that when we're doing this, we're giving our students feedback on their own learning and helping them figure out how to be better learners. We are also getting feedback on our students' learning to help us guide where to go next, what we're going to do next. We can give our students the opportunity to give their peers feedback and learn from each other, working with each other in that way. And then also we need to look at it in the sense of, how can we allow our students a forum to give feedback to us? So in this hour, I'm kind of like super cramming a lot of things in and really focusing on that teacher to student feedback, but hoping that I built enough time in so that we can explore some ideas for our students to have a chance to give us feedback. Oh, golly. I hope I'm still on. Oh, good. Thanks. Something, my little screen disappeared. I'm just going to leave the chat up. So if it gets wonky or anything, let me know and I will try to punt. Thanks, Dan. Okay. So one of the first things, one of the most important things we need to remember when we're giving our students feedback is praise is not the same as feedback. Praise is valuable, but it should not be confused with giving our students effective feedback. And in fact, too much praise has been shown to be a little bit detrimental to our students. And I just have a little note from one of the books that we're using with our visible learning, is that teachers have to be careful not to give or not to overpraise their students, because what it can do is it can tell our students that maybe the student isn't capable, because there's this perception out there that teachers give praise to the lower achievers to try to like bolster their confidence. And so you get this sense that the praise maybe isn't sincere. You also can form these students that just become praise junkies, where all they're really doing is just seeking out your praise and not really going for your feedback. And this kind of ties into that whole idea of creating our teacup children, or their snowflake children, where we are, Melanie, even though I've been studying this for a year, in the course I'm facilitating, I find myself giving praise. So it's very hard, because I feel like I have been, I try to be a positive teacher, and, especially when I'm working in the library, I don't have that same, in-depth relationship with my students. So it's very easy to give praise and not exactly feedback because I don't want to make a kid feel bad. So I still kind of try to do the praise sandwich where, you start with a compliment and then you tell them what we need to work on and then you end with a compliment. So I feel like I'm in the hybrid place. I haven't perfected this. I'm still really learning myself. So in the study that I kind of like started to base this presentation on, we came across two ideas that Hattie came up with. And the first one is that your feedback should give your students information about where am I going, how am I doing, and where am I going next. And then we're also going to look at the 4 levels of feedback, and we'll kind of get into depth in that a little bit more in a second. So I'm going to play this video that I did have queued up until I lost my, there we go. Let's see if this will play for us.
The Power of Feedback by John, Hattie, and Helen Timberly. While constructive feedback can be one of the most effective methods to enable learning, when done incorrectly, it can do more harm than help. That's why John, Hattie, and Helen Timberly studied what types of feedback and conditions allow learning to flourish, and what cases stifle growth. To begin with, Hattie and Timberly define feedback as information provided by an agent, such as a teacher, peer, book, etc., regarding aspects of one's performance or understanding. According to the study, feedback is intended to help a student get from where they are to where they need to be. The article, The Power of Feedback, describes many ways this can be done. The students have 2 options. Either they try harder and exercise more effective methods, or they lower their goal. Ideally, teachers will attempt to give constructive reviews so that the student will implement the first strategy instead of its alternative. What teachers can do to aid the students is provide reasonable goals as well as help students reach them through constructive feedback. But what is constructive feedback? Hattie and Timberly define it as a response that answers these 3 questions. Where am I going, which defines the goal? How am I going, which describes what the student is currently doing? And where to next, which guides the student to the next step toward attaining their goal. Ideally, these 3 questions are woven together to enhance the student's understanding of what needs to be done. According to the article, there are 4 different levels of feedback that may reflect these questions: the task level, process level, self-regulation level, and the self level. The task level involves feedback regarding how well the student has performed the task. It's the most common type of feedback, as the article claims that about 90% of questions posed by the teachers are aimed at this level. While it can be effective while addressing interpretations, it's rarely efficient, and it doesn't generalize what the student needs to improve. It simply defines what exactly needs to be corrected for a specific project. The process level leads students to consider how they obtain information and how their task is connected to relating tasks. It challenges the students to form a deeper understanding of learning and encourages them to construct meaning on their own, which proves more effective. This promotes error detection, which is when a student reflects on their own work. The next level is the self-regulation level, which addresses the way the students examine and adjust their action toward their learning goal. Like the process level, this encourages the student to self-assess, but to an even more critical degree, which is why it is also considered effective. However, students that are not confident in their own abilities or who are not as effective of learners will not benefit from this type of feedback. The 4th and final level is the self level. Also used too often in classrooms, this type of feedback involves reflection on the person and not their work. It typically builds a student up, but gives them little direction toward improvement. The article suggests that this type of feedback is, in fact, counterproductive and interferes with the student's ability to self-assess. That is why instead of complimenting students, teachers are encouraged to compliment either the student's work or the way in which he or she has done it. However, each student responds differently to each form of feedback, and while certain types are generally more effective than others, it is important to designate which form must always be used. Ultimately, the teacher must be familiar with what enables each student to grow individually in order to enhance the learning process for every being in their classroom.
Okay, so the question was, is this, that scared me. Is this in the Wakelet? And I did put the link in there. That is the fastest video I could find to introduce these concepts. And if you're, if it's overwhelming right now, I get it. I've probably watched it 3 times today just to, try to kind of sort some thoughts out. And then what I did is I kind of divided this up a little bit. So what the first things we have to do are address those three questions. Where am I going? How am I going? And where to next? And what these do is they explicitly tell our kiddos what we are expecting of them. What are the goals? Whether we give them our learning intentions, whether we give them a proficiency scale, we need to let them know what their success criteria are. How will they know what they're supposed to be learning? And this could be done in like a rubric. This could be done in so many different ways. So our students need to be able to answer that question. Then the next thing is letting them or helping them answer the question, how am I going? What progress am I making? Where am I at in achieving that goal? So this is where I think rubrics, proficiency scales really come in handy, because it gives you something concrete to tell your students. If you're using a proficiency scale or I can statements, or however you're gauging that, you're able to say to your student, like, I'm not giving you a nearing proficiency on this paper because I don't like you. These are the things that you need to work on. These are the things that you need to address to become proficient. And then where to next? So if our student is where we're at for proficient, where should they go next? How should they get better? Because even our kids who are at, a level 3 on a proficiency scale, we've got to give them a place to go to a level 4. Or if they're at a 1, how can they get to that 2? So this is kind of like the whole idea behind what should our feedback do. Then the next thing is, this was just a, I think this is probably out of order, but when we're talking about feedback, when we're talking about the effect size of feedback, it is it is of super high. So I think effect size is the 0.4 that equals a year of growth, and feedback is a 0.73. And so that is almost 2 years of growth. That's like the effect size that it can have on our students, because what it's doing is it's helping them look at themselves as the learner, not just, okay, my teacher said I got a B, but instead, like, this is where I'm at, this is why I'm here. And it helps them, it helps empower them to take advantage of their own learning, or to, I guess, take a more proactive stance in their own learning. So here are the 4 levels of feedback. And these go from, it's not like you just want to get down into this like self-regulation area. What this is saying is it depends on what your students are doing, what the task that they're doing, and what level they're at. So when you're introducing something, if they're a novice or it's new material, you're going to look at the things like, how well has the task been performed? Is it correct or incorrect? This could be yes or no. This is like pretty direct feedback. So an example of this would be, hey, I like the paragraph you wrote, but you need to include more about the Treaty of Versailles. You're directly telling them what they need to do in order to improve upon their work. The next level, if your students maybe have some degree of proficiency, is that process. So you're trying to help them maybe with some questions so that you can help them develop the strategies to improve themselves on this task. So maybe you're asking them, well, what were you thinking during this? And they can give you some feedback on what they were thinking as they wrote their paragraph. Or you might say something like, an example would be, you need to edit this piece of writing by looking at your descriptions. Let's make sure that the reader understands what you're trying to say and focus on your descriptions. So you're leading them to something specific, but you're not telling them exactly how to fix it. You're giving them some of that ability, or that you're giving them the ideas on how to improve without telling them specifically what to do. Then the next one would be self-regulation. And this is when our students have a high degree of proficiency. So for this one, you're just kind of helping them get to the point of making that change. So an example would be, you already know the key features of a opening argument. So check your work to see if you've incorporated them in your first paragraph. So you're still helping the students, but you're really not as specific. You're leading them to go back to your prior knowledge on what you know about a strong introduction, and then take your work and compare it to that. So again, the whole entire purpose is that you're trying to make your students better learners in themselves as they get more proficient with the task. Okay, and then the very last one, the last part on here is that self, and that's that personal evaluation and effect about the learning. This is the praise. This is where you might give yourself some praise in this, but you kind of want to limit what you're doing. You want to make sure when you're giving feedback that you get to the point where you're teaching your students instead of telling them. It's kind of like when I used to teach English and I would say, show me what the experience was like. Don't just tell me, like put me in that experience. So you want to teach your students instead of just telling them what they should be doing. Okay. So that is and then the 4 characteristics of effective feedback. It needs to be specific. It should be timely. You're going to help them address their partial understandings, and then you limit it. You're not going to, look at a 5-page paper and give the student every single thing that they need to correct, because that's overwhelming. You want to kind of meet your kids where they're at and give them the most crucial pieces first, and then help them improve to the point where you can be more in that self-regulation zone where you're teaching them about what they need to do instead of just telling them. I linked in here this article that my colleague and I found this summer. We've been using it in the class that we're facilitating. And I love at the top, there is a great infographic on just some ways that you can give your students feedback. And then there's also, I love this article because it's 20 super brief and easy ways, like concepts when you're talking about feedback. So this is probably like a 5-minute read, but it's actually one that I do have GASP printed out because it's one that I kind of refer to a lot after finding it this summer. I just think it's really concise and a great resource for you. So I did link that in the Wakelet for you. All right, so that is, like I said, the down and dirty, quick background on feedback and why it's important. So now we're going to talk about some tools. I think this is the more fun part for me, but also you have to have the background or else it's not going to make any sense. So the first thing I did was I kind of brainstormed some low and no tech options, because even though, a lot of what we're doing at this conference is focusing on technology, there's something to be said for those low and no tech options for our students. So I think the best way that we can give feedback is face-to-face, where you are having that conversation with a student so that they can hear your tone, you can answer their questions, and it's a conversation. But I teach in a high school where we have 30 kids in a class period that's about an hour, and then we have 5 of those a day, so 150 kids. Face-to-face feedback is not always a possibility. So some other things you can do is really incorporate that peer-to-peer feedback. And when we're using this, it's so important that we let our students know what our expectations are. What I have found, be it from freshmen to seniors in high school, is if I say, hey, I want you guys to get together and talk about, what you see in each other's paper, something you like and something they need to improve on. Most kids will say, that's really good. And that's not feedback, that's praise. And that's not even specific praise. So if you're going to incorporate things like speed dating or using sticky notes or having those peer-to-peer conversations, we really need to make sure that we're spelling out for our students what we want them to see. This is where, again, if you have a proficiency scale, if you have a rubric, those are super handy things. You hand out the rubric to the students and you have them maybe assess each other's papers and then give them, I'm so sorry, my examples tend to go to English because that's what I taught. But then you give them a chance to discuss that with each other. And by being able to give feedback to another student, they also learn how to receive feedback a little bit better. It's not a criticism of who you are as a person. I can still really, really like you, but you need to work on your use of the quadratic formula. That has no bearing on whether I like you as a person. And so helping our students give each other feedback also helps them distinguish that, you know, feedback is about your learning, and that is not who you are as a person. And it's not a criticism of you. You're not at fault if you make mistakes. A lot of, you know, giving this feedback in the classroom is making sure that students know our classrooms are a safe place for learning and mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. A lot of people use the term like you fail forward. If I think the most empowering day of my life as a teacher was the day that I stopped saying, oh, I know, when they were trying to help me with, you know, my smart board the first year I got it. And instead I was like, can you just show me this? Like, can you show me what you're saying so I don't have to go home and try to Google what you were saying and pretend that I knew what you were telling me? So if we show our students as teachers that we make mistakes, we're willing to learn, we're always willing to improve, we're modeling that for them. It is perfectly safe in this classroom to have a wrong answer. It is not the end, or it's not the answer, it's the journey. It's getting from point A to point B in our learning. Flashcards are actually a really great, super easy feedback tool for you to use as a teacher, for peers to use with each other, or for students to use by themselves. Because you think about a flashcard, if you're holding up you know, the different elements on the periodic chart, and you don't know that sodium is Na, you get that immediate feedback. It says Na and you're like, niacin? Nope, it's sodium. So right away you get, oh, I had that wrong. Here's the correct answer. Now I move on. Another great low or no tech option for you as a teacher is a tool called Plickers. And what Plickers are is they are cards that you can print out, and they look kind of like QR codes. And every student, you can number your students, so every student has a card. And what you see is there's an A, a B, a C, or a D, depending on the four. I wish I had a sample of this in my hand right now. Square has four sides, so depending on what side is up would show your answer, and every student's card looks different. It's very hard to tell. So it's a super easy way. You download an app on your phone, you ask a quick question. All right, here is this math problem. Take a minute to solve it in 60 seconds. I'm going to have you hold up your answer. You scan the room. And it tells you how many students have it right, how many students made the incorrect answer. And so really quickly, you can see, first of all, which students need to improve, but they don't see that. They don't see everybody's name up there. So it's not like they're like, oh, Shaundel, she really needs to work on her math facts. But also it tells you if your students are ready to move on or if you need to reteach something. So Plickers, super easy. The technology you need for you is your phone or like an iPad. And then you print out the cards. I linked the site there, so you can go to that if you want to. Some of my favorite tools are quick formative assessment games. You know, that formative assessment is that quick feedback. Where are my students at? Do I need to reteach anything? Who is really grasping the concept and who isn't? Kahoot is an old standby. People love Kahoot. Quizzes, very similar to Kahoot. Quizlet Live is very fun. There's a few different games. Two of the newer ones are Gimkit and Blookit. Gimkit was created, oh gosh, maybe 3 years ago, by an actual high school student. And he was tired of Kahoot because all that relied on was like having a device in your hand and being able to look at the board and having speed. And so with Gimkit, he added some other layers, like being able to buy bonuses if you get extra right, being able to, I think you can buy insurance. So as you earn money, you can buy things to help like plot out your game better. And then Bookit is kind of my newest favorite. And so what I did is I set up a Bookit for us to play because I want to show you why I maybe love it the most right now as far as feedback goes. So, whoops, I keep grabbing that. Let me pop this down. I'm kind of afraid to click on things because my little computer is so slow. Okay, so we're going to go to Bookit and we're going to play a game called Name That Logo. So I have a Bookit account, but much like Kahoot and some of those tools, you as my students do not need to have an account. So if you have a phone, iPad, another device, you might want to play on there, but you don't need to see my screen as you play this. It's individual. So I'm going to go to host. Come on. Sorry, little delays here. We are going to play we're going to play Gold Quest. This is one of my favorite ones to play. I'm going to move this. I don't want to miss anything in the chat. So I'm going to host this and we are going to play for time. We'll just play for like 2 minutes. Maybe. Okay, I'm practicing patience here. Oh, okay, 1 more minute. It will show you the instructions. You can join late. And I think that's everything I need. So I'm going to click on host now. And I'm also going to mute that. You're going to go, please, to bookit.com/play. And then you're going to enter our join code, which is 875173. And I'll read that a couple more times for you if you're just using the same browser. You're at bookit.com/play. And our code is 875173. Thank you, Dan. Oh, look at you. You're the best. I think about reading in the chat, but I don't think about sharing. So I really appreciate your help.
No problem at all.
So as we play this game, it'll give you instructions in a second, but they're pretty quick. What you're going to see is you are going to see that when you get a question correct, you can choose a treasure chest, and it allows you to increase your gold, decrease your gold, swap with people. So there's a little bit of gameplay involved with this. And here's hoping that it's stuck with my 2-minute limit. I'm going to go ahead and start it. You can join late if you want to, or you can just watch and see how this goes. So if you're playing on device and you can't see my screen, it's just giving a leaderboard and it tells me who's swapping gold and doing those things. It also shows me how much gold my class has earned as they're getting correct answers. Molly's in the lead right now. Nope, Dano's in the lead right now. Molly's in
People
second.
keep taking gold from me. Not very nice.
Tabitha's in the lead now. Ashton. Diane. Diane just stole gold from Ashton and then Gus swapped. Ooh, Diane's in the big lead now. You guys got to catch her. Oh, Gus. Gus and Tabitha are tied. Got about 30 seconds left. Ashton's in the lead. Oh, Ashton's the one to go after now. Ten seconds left. Ooh, Laura. Ooh, Gus. All right. So in third place, we have Dano. In second place, we have Gus. And in first place, we have Laura. And that's really fun. Easy to play, easy to use. I got to see what was happening. The first time I played this, I was walking by an algebra room. And of course, I had my phone. And as I'm walking by, I'm like, ooh, what are we doing? And the teacher was like, we're going to play a game called Book It. Do you want to play? Sure do. Well, it was algebra. It might have been pre-algebra, but it was algebra that I knew how to do. So I was like killing it. And everyone kept taking my gold. And then like finally right at the end, I went to do something. I was in first place and then someone took my gold and I ended up like second to last. They must have swapped with me. So right here as a teacher, this tells me that at least if nothing else, Laura got like her last answer correct because she either earned all that gold or she swapped with someone. But as the teacher, here's what I really get to do. And here's what I really like to see. I like to see, oh, here we go, my report. So when I view my report, I can see that if I'm looking at overall proficiency with this standard, my students got 153 correct. They only missed 12. So 93% is pretty good as a class. But if I keep scrolling, I can see that, so Laura did great. She got 83% right. She only missed 2. Hey, but look at Gus. He got 14 correct. So this gives me the breakdown of how my students fared. So even though Lori didn't finish at the top, she still got 13 correct. The game part got her, not the knowledge. So, whoops, I wonder if I can go back to that. Well, I accidentally got right out of that. But so it gives me that feedback that I need as a teacher, and I can scroll and show my kids. Maybe I don't show that in front of my class. Maybe I do a shout out to the winner and then not projecting it. I just look and say, hey, Dan, Diane, I know there were other people, but I can't remember their names. Those guys were my 100% club. You got 100% correct. So you have that gamification, but then I still get that, how did students do? So yes, Book It is a game of speed, but it's also a game of precision because if you don't get any right, you can't swap gold. So it adds just a little bit different element. And Kahoot, I love Kahoot. I have nothing against it. I think that in my school, especially, it was overused a little bit. So kids got a little burnt out. And also if you have, a 7-question Kahoot and you get the first 2 wrong, you're kind of out of the running to win. Whereas like this game or GimKit, which kind of has that same gamification is, yes, Lori, but it gives you that ability to still be in the running. So, but yes, Kelly, I'm right there with you. We switch it up all the time in the library. And Melanie, it might be security. I'm sorry that you didn't get to play. Hopefully you got to watch and kind of see what was happening. So that, if we go back to my little idea, those are just some of those quick formative assessment games. I would not personally, in that algebra classroom that I jumped into, that wouldn't be like a daily grade for me because you still have that gamification. So students are rushing a little bit. And in the real world, if you have to use, algebra or geometry, it's not like you usually are like timed on it. I mean, you get to think it through and get the right answer. Whereas when you're gaming, there's that rush. So I wouldn't look at that and be like, well, you got 83%. So that's your grade for the day, is that 83, because I think speed has something to do with it. But it gives me as the teacher that really quick feedback as to where my students are at. You guys nailed the logos. We're not going to spend any more time on that standard. So another tool that we can use, or I guess another kind of like classification that I came up with, are quizzing and polling tools. And so just some ideas on this one would be Google Forms, Socrative, Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere. And I linked all of these in there. They do different things. Google Forms is one of my favorite things to use. I'm going to close these hoping that I keep my bandwidth happy here. Google Forms is one of my favorite tools to use because very quickly I can get an answer, a result from my students. So I actually linked this guy in the Wakelet. Nope, I sure didn't. I am going to grab this guy and I'm going to send it to you in the chat. So if you would just take a hot second and fill this out. I'm not really concerned with anything more than getting the data from you. So you don't have to put your email in there. You can put your initials if you want to. But what I want to do is I want to show you what it looks like on the teacher side and how that feedback can be super helpful. Just make sure, yeah. So if you just take a minute. One of the great things about Google tools is when I access them, I always just go to drive.google.com and then I create a new document using the plus symbol. But all of the Google tools, you can actually go straight to the tool. So instead of going to Drive and then clicking on, yes, I want to, golly, change it back, yeah. So if I go to Drive, boop, 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 you know that I can click on the plus button and create a form, a doc, a drawing. I can create any of those there. But if I go directly to forms.google.com, it takes me to the landing page for forms. And in the landing page for those, there are a ton of template galleries. So I just grabbed this exit ticket and in roughly 2.5 minutes, I just revamped it enough to make it something easy to use today. There's a blank quiz in here if you want to use it. So it's already set up that to use that data in a different way where your students can get a direct answer. So in Google Forms, if you set it up as a quiz, you can provide feedback in the answers of that quiz. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. And then when students are done, you can email them directly. So they're not waiting on that. There's also a course evaluation that's really helpful because remember, when we're looking at feedback, we want to model like receiving feedback. And we also, as teachers, want to do the best we can for our students. So getting their feedback to us is pretty important. It's kind of scary to, I mean, I think at the college level, you're used to it, but if you are a K-12 teacher, it's a little scary to ask your students for feedback, like, how am I doing? What am I doing? But if you create that environment where, you know, feedback is for growth, it's not a criticism, you can get really great feedback from your students that help you become a better teacher. So now that I talked through that, when I go here and I check out my responses, this is when I use exit tickets. This is, I usually make them super brief. It's not so much about the student, it's more about where my kids are as a group. So when I look at this and I look back on my day, I look back on my class period, or, you know, maybe I taught a 20-minute lesson and now my students are practicing really quick. Did you feel prepared? Great. So what I have done yesterday or in the past got you to the point where you were ready for the material today. All of you got this correct. I'm super proud of you. I was going to try to do something more something tougher, but I didn't really want to waste time on you, but I can see a graph. So if some of you had answered 400, then I would see, oh, okay, we need to work on adding those like hundreds columns. I don't teach elementary math. I'm so sorry that if that's not the correct wording. And then down here, coffee always. So but if I look at the like what would make it more effective, more practice, it was fun, I liked it, it's great. So whatever is in here, I can just look really quickly and be like, oh, okay, so this one didn't work. It's not that this kid didn't know what was going on, it's that they weren't able to access the link. Great. Oh, missed the beginning of it, or I went too fast. Great, I have a recording. You'll be able to access that later. So automatically it just tells me what my kids might need. And if I am worried, like, oh shoot, I wonder whose link didn't work, I can always go in and download the spreadsheet and look and see, or I can go through the individual results since there's only a few. And then I know, okay, this person is the one that said that their link wasn't working. I'll go and, make sure they get the correct link. Or if someone was like, I need the recording, I can send them the recording and then I can touch base the next day and say, hey, did that make sense to you or anything like that? So this is usually the way that I use forms in an exit ticket. It's for me. It's for me to know where you're at. I'm not going to probably give my students a grade on this. I'm not going to, say, whoops, okay. One of you, if we go back to our summary, one of you got the put 400 in here. That was wrong. So you get a 0 on that concept. It's just so I know if I need to reteach. Or if Shaundel puts 400 in here, I know I need to go and touch base with her so she understands that when you add the 3 here, this becomes a 2, so it equals 500, or however that works out. When I'm setting up a form, I can also go to quizzes and I can make something a quiz. And what this does is it allows me to grade it automatically. This works best with either like 1 or 2 word answers. It works pretty well with vocabulary, as long as your kids know if they're supposed to capitalize it or not. Multiple choice, it works super well with. And I can decide what my students are going to see. So if I let them see the missed questions, then that shows them what they need to work on for the future. If I let them see the correct answers, hopefully I'm just helping them figure out what they did wrong and how to get to that correct answer. And then the point values, why would I not let my students see the point values on a quiz? So if I save that and I go back to my questions, this could be a class in and of itself. When I go in here, I can set it up in my answer key, what the correct answer is. So the correct answer is 500, mark all others incorrect. And I can provide feedback that says, make sure you are looking. So if the student gets it wrong, I'm thinking most likely they add 300 and 100 and they get 400 because they don't turn this into a 2. I don't know. But this would be maybe the most frequent mistake that we make. I could also have this go to a link to Khan Academy that goes through how to complete this concept, or a link that goes to a video that I created so that my students can I can walk them through the process of how we got that answer. So within this, that would give those students that immediate feedback. They would get feedback right away and know what they need to correct, what they need to change, and how they can get better. And I don't have to do anything. So that kind of goes back to this idea of, if tools have a built-in feature, use it. There's no shame in using those for instant results, but you have to know that you're not getting, it's harder to get those like deeper depth of knowledge questions in there because you have to use kind of those short answer or those multiple choice. But really what we're going for is our students, we don't want to send our students home with 20 questions to practice and they're practicing them all wrong. So being able to give them that feedback right away and let them know what they missed, they're not continuing to practice incorrectly. Also, one of my favorite tools in the Google Suite, I'm kind of a Google junkie, is using the comments. So in the class I'm teaching this summer, I'm just gonna, yes, Melanie, no, you're not. When I use Google Classroom and I grab docs, I use the comments all the time in Classroom, but I can also go into anything. I can go into a doc, a spreadsheet, a drawing, slides, and I can add a comment. So I could just insert a comment really quick with either Command Option M or just go insert comment. And then I can even tag someone at Sarah. This is amazing. I love trying to get better at specific feedback and not just praise. So then I can assign this to her. When I assign it, she is going to get the comment and she's going to get an email that says, Shaundel commented on your, there we go. Shaundel commented on your presentation. So using the comments in those tools, if you use the @ to anyone who's shared on that document, they will get that and then they will know that something's been assigned to them. They'll see it in an email. Cruising through because I think I have like 5 more minutes. I did the exit ticket. Okay, a couple more things I love are using screencasting tools for feedback. This year I taught a remote class and I also did all of the grading for credit recovery English students who needed to write an essay. So I just grabbed really quick. I cut out the kiddo's name. Screencastify is a free tool and Loom is a free tool. Screencastify, I think you get 3 minutes on the free. Loom, I think you get 5. But really, when I'm using them for feedback, I'm not going to record a 20-minute video for my students. They're not going to watch it. But here's kind of a sample of what I did. This was about a 5-minute video because I gave her a couple of instructional things. But what I did is I recorded the feedback using Screencastify looking at her paper. And I talked through the comments that I made. And then I didn't release the grade until somewhere at the end of the video. So they actually had to watch the whole video to know what their grade was. So my feedback wasn't falling on deaf ears. So I'm just going to play like 30 seconds of this.
That is a catchy first sentence. You did a nice job integrating a quotation in there right away, just a little bit clunky in the introduction of it. So I gave you an idea just for some refinement, just to kind of take it like up a little bit. One thing I noticed, this is the only place you used USA. Throughout the rest, you used US. So maybe just stick with one for consistency. Let me see here. I love some of the word choices that you have are really, really like, they're really nice. You do a really nice job.
And what you can hear is that I am really great at praise and not as good at specific. Most of my feedback as I watched these videos that I was trying to find the example, I hover between that task and that process. And that's not necessarily reflective of the student. I think that's more reflective of me. But I did try to be specific in what I was giving, but it's really hard not to also provide praise when I'm reading a paper because I feel like it's the red pen of death sometimes. Let's see. But all I did when I did that was I have the Screencastify and the Loom extension. So I'll just go back to my form here really quick. Really what I did is I clicked on my extension. One thing I've learned is that I really should use my webcam when I'm recording because it's more meaningful when students can see your face. But sometimes the angle of my laptop is not great. I hit record. I tell it to record my entire screen. It counts me in. And then I can record and talk through what's going on here. So I can say like, oh, looking at my responses, this is what I see. I feel like I need to work on asking better questions so that my students can give me more information and I can get better. And then I'm done. And so it records my video. It goes straight to Drive. All I did was I copied the link and then in my students' papers, I just pasted it in their title. So then they got that video feedback specifically for them that I talked through. Okay, one thing I want to get to the very last thing. Yes, Tabitha, it's such a time saver. Man, I used to print papers and write, and it probably took me like a half an hour. Now what I do is I make comments. Some of them I would delete when I was done. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned them as I talked through the paper. Very much a time saver. The last thing I want to show you before we go, because I'm really crunching on time here, is Moat and Kaizena. And these are two really cool tools that integrate into Google, which I know not everyone's a Google user, but maybe I can convince you. What they allow you to do is with the Moat extension, you can record into just about anything. So like on here, let's say that I didn't want to just type a comment, I wanted to record. I've got that Moat extension. So it starts, I can record in slides. And I can just hit start. And then I say, Sarah, this is an amazing tool. I cannot wait to use it with the students in our classes for July. I think that leading them through this goes back to that whole primary, like what is the purpose of using technology and how much time do you have, and finding that happy medium, because we have to remember that technology is the tool and it is not the lesson. I'm done. It's like, hey, what do you want me to do with this? Boop, 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 boop. It's thinking. My computer's probably thinking extra hard because I've got a lot going on. I can play it. I can trash it and start again, or I can just insert it. And all it does is it puts this little tiny purple microphone onto my slides here. And I don't want to replace it. Come on. Okay, so then I pop this guy where I want it. My students can see it, and then they can hit play and hear my feedback. The other really cool thing about Moat is if you are in forms and you are writing a form, there's a million different uses for it. I can click to record something here so that if I have struggling readers, I can read the question to them and they can hear the question and then do their answer. My students can also get the Moat extension if my Google admin allows it, and then they can record verbal answers back. It is the coolest thing ever. I've been talking to a lot of teachers where it's blocked in their district, but I think just on the basis of reaching out to our struggling students, to our ESL or ELL students, our SPED students, this is a tool that like opens up learning to a ton of people. So that was an hour of me talking, and I obviously kind of touched on what I wanted to. Yes, Melanie, yes, absolutely. But I did share the Wakelet for you. In here at the very beginning is, I think you did too, is my contact info. If you want to email me, ask me any questions, I am totally happy to answer them. You can tweet at me. You can add me on Instagram if you like pictures of dogs, because that's pretty much what I put on there, are my two Goldens. And like I said, I barely touched the surface. Like that was the sprinkles on top of the icing on top of the cake. So if this is a topic that interests you, if you want to collaborate, talk about it, give me feedback, I would absolutely love it, because I'm always trying to get better, and this is kind of my passion right now. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Sorry I went right until the end, maybe even longer. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll let you see my face really quick. Ashton, I totally would. Reach out to me. I'd love to. All right. How'd I do, Dan?
Awesome, as always. We always love to have Shaundel present. Hopefully we can get you here next year too, right? You can come here in person and hang out.
Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So awesome. So yeah, so there's a feedback form in the Moodle thing, and you can fill it out. There's also, if you're looking for OPI CE credits, you can get that right on the Moodle site. And otherwise, just want to say thank you so much, Shaundel. Awesome as always. I always learn something, which is amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Hey, Dan, unrelated question. How do presenters give moot coin? I can't find the form.
Oh, you can just email Hazen. Email
Okay.
Ryan and he will divvy them up.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, take care, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.